So, good morning, everybody. Very pleased to be here today. Start off by saying the late political leader and historian Sir Winston Churchill once said that the further back you look, the further forward you can see. So I'd like to ask you this morning, just before I introduce the presentation, to cast your minds back a little way. Looking around the audience, I was originally going to ask you to cast your minds back about 3 decades, but Thomas, as we were talking earlier on, quite reminded me that when I joined HP, he wasn't even born. So perhaps I'll ask you to cast your minds back about 2 decades, 2 or 3 decades. And I'd like you to think about the car you were driving in those days, in the 80s or 90s. And also think about the relationship or the dialogue, the conversation that you had with your car. This might sound a bit weird to start with, but chances are, in those days, 2 or 3 decades ago, you had quite an intimate relationship with your car. You probably maintained parts of it yourself, you knew how it worked, and if you changed something in your car, you could sense the effect, the change, etc. Now, if we go forward very quickly to today's world, chances are the car you own today, you haven't even opened the bonnet. If you have, you probably haven't done anything very intrusive, but we don't need to. That's one thing. The technology is developed, and so we don't need. So the conversation we have is quite different. We may, in fact, have a conversation with the car, with voice controls, etc., looking at the in-car entertainment, navigation system, variable cruise control, etc. So things have changed a lot, and we've abstracted ourselves away quite significantly from the details of running a car. So today, I'd like to talk about a new style of IT, and that's the main theme of this presentation, such that you're able to join a conversation, but join a conversation about the business of innovation. And I would challenge you all to start thinking about this more seriously, because IT is there. Companies like HP, of course, and its partners are still working on the core IT assets, information assets, to enable our organizations, our digital businesses to function. But this enables us to have a new style of conversation with IT to focus on the business of innovation. Now, in my role of HP, I'm the director of the HP Innovation Centers, and there we're focusing on working with organizations to help join the conversation of innovation, to take the benefits from the technology side and to make sure it matters in those particular environments. So let's start off, though, with some basics, looking at information technology. And I think in my career, one of the biggest transitions I've seen, certainly over the last few years, is that yes, we still focus a lot on the T, on the technology, but the big emphasis today is very much focusing on the I, on the information. So information technology is there to enable us to access information. And this is a big transformation that's taking place, and we should start thinking about our innovative thoughts along those lines. And why is this happening? Well, we can see here that some of the key things that have happened, of course, mobility is one of the key themes today, social media, cloud computing, data analytics. These are all things which are helping us to focus more on information, on data, information, vaster range of new sources of data that we can focus on to gather more information for our personal lives and for our businesses that we work for. And of course, the big challenge now is to focus on how we can turn that information into meaningful insights within our business, and most importantly, to focus on the business value. So again, looking back at the car example, we're trying to abstract ourselves away, focus on the new style of IT, to think about the new sources of data, and then think about how to convert that into meaningful business insights within your organization. So we talk about the new style of IT, and I don't want to play on this analogy too much, but if you think about this as below the hood and above the hood, that's quite a useful way to think about this. In terms of course, HP is still progressing fantastic developments and its partners on some of the core IT assets that we have today. Many things we come across as well. Just the other day, I came across the new 5 gigahertz CPU processor. Great breakthrough. If you think about the car analogy, you probably don't care about that. If you're buying a laptop, you very rarely talk about the clock speed anymore. But of course, many of the developments underneath here are very important. HP's recent Moonshot development, the server, is really the foundation of the new generation hyperscale computing. A lot of fascinating things going on here. But what I'm focusing on today in this short presentation is very much looking above the top line here, above the hood, mobility, cloud, social media, big data, security, etc. All these elements, these ideas that we can now factor into our creative and innovative thinking to focus on the business of innovation within our organizations. As Eric said at the beginning, though, in our research labs, we keep focusing on the next generation. There are some very exciting developments taking place. So for those of you who are still very interested in the technology, as Eric quite rightly said, a lot of interest now is going to the next generation of communication, going beyond the speed at which electrons can go along a copper wire, looking at photonics there. A lot of developments taking place in visualization of data, 2D and 3D, to help us not only visualize, but manipulate and engage with data. And the other area here is another core theme at the moment is really universal memory. What's the next generation of memory fabrics? And we had quite a breakthrough a few years ago in developing what we call the memristor, which is a resistor with memory, which is going to be the foundation of some of these low-cost, scalable memories. So a lot of very exciting things going on under the hood, as they say. But what I'd like to focus on today is really the business of innovation. And the reason we have innovation centers is to work with organizations around the world to focus on their innovation needs, taking advantage of our knowledge and insights from a technology point of view. And what organizations are really focusing on are the significant and highly profitable departures from what they're currently doing, which help them to differentiate. Because differentiation in the marketplace is a clear need, but the window of opportunity is always very small because it's very easy to copy and other organizations come along to compete with you. So this is a continuous, sustainable approach to innovation, but keep in mind that the focus is on this breakthrough innovation we're trying to look for. I wanted to give you an example, rather than just talking in abstract terms, of how this operates in practice. And the company that I chose today is to talk about our relationship, our conversation with the company DreamWorks. And this goes back well over a decade. And we've worked on all the major films with DreamWorks, starting from the early Shrek films. And a couple of interesting little stories to share with you here. If I look at Shrek, some of you know the character Fiona in the Shrek films. In Shrek 1, if you go back and look at the film, her hair was just a mass of hair. But she wasn't happy with this. She wanted to have more naturally flowing hair. And to do this in those days wasn't possible with existing animation techniques. So we had to provide, this as the early foundation of utility cloud computing, the possibility to model hairs. On Fiona's head, there are 50,000 processes modeling just her hair to give her naturally flowing hair. So when it comes to image rendering, that just wasn't possible before. So by working together with DreamWorks, we're able to do fantastic new things in terms of animation. There are many new product developments and also developments of things like Helio Studios, IntelliPresence, but it's focusing on the customer's business needs. It's not just saying, well, here's a great technology, use it. It's a question of saying, well, what is it you're trying to do, and how can we improve that? How can we focus on the innovation to stimulate that new style of IT? So many developments worked in all the major films, Kung Fu Panda, Madagascar, etc. Well, I thought I'd show you a little video clip here for some of the DreamWorks teams, just how they actually relate to HP, focusing on the innovation. So I'm just going to show you a little video clip now.
It is our job to watch over the children of the world. Let's go!
DreamWorks Animation is in the business of telling great stories. We actually set out on each one of these movies to deliver something, an experience, an environment, a world to an audience that is unlike anything that they've seen before. And so Guardians is visually the most complex film that we've ever made.
This is going to be epic!
It would not be possible for us today to make the movies that we make without having a state-of-the-art technology platform provided for us from soup to nuts by HP. For us, they are essential to do what we do.
Who's with me?
At DreamWorks and Effects, we're always looking for ways to make the effects bigger, make the effects better, to raise the bar. One of the most interesting things about Rise of the Guardians is that we had several large effects that were specifically related to characters, Jack's magic and Jack's frost, Sandman's gold sand, thought bubbles above his head, the sand streams that flowed through the environments, and then there were the evil effects, when Pitch actually gets a hold of Sandman's sand and he turns it into the evil version. And we call that the black sand, and eventually he could change the black sand into nightmares. On Rise of the Guardians, when it affects big and it takes over the whole screen, and then to have that effect also portray the emotion of that character, it's very inspiring for us as effects artists to, have that much contribution to a show.
So as we see, some quite impressive things take place here, and this continues. That's only possible, though, by having this attitude towards the new style of IT, abstracting away from a lot of the details, but to actually focus on the creativity needs of the designers and the organizations that we're working for. So are you all paying attention? Yes? So far, so it's not a mid-presentation test or anything like that. It's a serious point. In the sense of what I've talked about so far is the fact that we have access to tremendous amounts of information today. We're focusing on that. The big issue that we have, all of us have in this audience today, is our attention. What they call the economics of attention. How do we know what to pay attention to, what's important, and what level of depth of information? We've seen some very nice examples this morning of the way the multimedia world that we're focusing on, ubiquitous computing, but we have to start focusing on how do we engage people, organizations, to focus their attention. Let's go back to the car for a moment. The windscreen in your car might look a little bit like this in the not-too-distant future. So first of all, what have you got on the screen here? Well, so first of all, we know something about the driver in front, Jennifer, in this case. The license has expired on her car, and she had a conviction a few months ago. So you have to be a bit careful. So you know the sensors are around, you're getting a lot of information. What else do we know here? We're getting information about the environment, the pollution, etc. in San Mateo, going there next week. What else have we got? Oh, what about this one here? We got information about, your smart windshield from Hitachi. There's a software upgrade needed. So it says if you blink rapidly, you can do the upgrade while you're driving along, for example. Other things we know, of course, navigation systems are there. You're getting information about your genetic profile. Is this chocolate bar good for you or not? So this is all the information that's being presented to you. Other things on there is an advert from HP, of course, saying that if you turn right at the next junction, there's a discount available for you. So you've got this totally immersive environment presented to you, lots of information. So when I talk about focusing your attention, okay, you're driving a car. We're focusing above the hood now, but what is it you're really paying attention to? How do you know which of these things you should be paying attention to as you're driving along? And if you think about your daily lives, you've got your mobile phones, your SMSs, your email, your Twitters, etc. Of course, HP has tried to enable all this, the new style of IT, but we've got to focus much more on the overall creativity. What is it you're really trying to do, and what's important to you as you go along? So this brings us on to this topic of really the fact that we have a lot of information. The more information we have, this actually creates a scarcity of attention, as is said here by Mr. Herbert Simon. And so this is a big challenge we have today. So new style of IT is great, a lot of information available, a lot of great enabling technologies. We want to focus much more on the innovation side, but at the same time find new ways of engaging our readers, our users, our customers, our employees to focus on the right thing at the right time. Now, of course, there are many different things, motivational factors, and what we need to do is, coming back to Thomas's point, is make sure we design that experience appropriately to really understand what is it you're trying to do, capture the attention, provide a very rewarding experience, gathering data at the same time, and then feeding that back into it's a continuous life cycle. So we need to focus much more on the design of this interaction with the digital world to make sure we are focusing on the right thing at the right time. And then we have to ask ourselves the question, well, what motivates us? Why should we do this? What's important? And we all have different motivation factors. We can look to the world of gaming as an example. Here's some just children. Where any of you who've got young children know that when they're involved in playing a game, they have an intensity and a thirst for playing, which is incredible. The picture in the middle of this is boy is on the verge of an epic win. How can you capture that same level of attention and intensity on other interactions you might have in the digital world? So this is why the topic of gamification is becoming increasingly important, learning from this sort of world and starting to think about different motivational factors. As I say, you all have different motivational factors. Some of you might be collecting frequent flyer miles on your favorite airline. Some of you might be worried about your LinkedIn profile, how many recommendations you have. Some of you, different motivations, there are eight different dimensions represented here. I spoke to somebody the other day, and he's currently building his own house. And he was obviously not very happy, had a lot of problems. And I said, well, why are you building your own house? And he says, well, my wife wants me to. And so perhaps that was a loss and avoidance. That was a motivation. He was doing it for a particular reason. And so we're having to start to get used to understanding these motivational factors and designing these into the way in which we use our IT solutions. This is a trend which is increasing. There's an estimate from Gartner saying it's going to increase to $2.8 billion by 2016. It's already estimated that by 2014, 70% of the global 2,000 companies will be managing at least one gamified application. The main motivation there is to create a new level of engagement and intensity of focus of attention. You have to be careful, though, because also a prediction by 2014 saying that 80% of existing gamified applications will fail by 2014. So coming back to the design point that we mentioned earlier is very important. But already through our work at the Innovation Centers, we've worked with companies in all these different industry segments focusing on this notion of focus of attention, gamification, trying to create more value from the interactions, the digital interactions that we create. Of course, now, if we enter the management information zone, think about the companies you work for. Unfortunately, this is often the situation we have. We have tons of data and information presented to us, and if we're not careful, we get this kind of nod-off effect. There isn't the same level of passion and engagement as I showed with some of the pictures from the gaming world a moment ago. There are some notable exceptions. If you watch any of the videos of Hans Rosling, he's animated, he loves data, and he gives you a thirst for exploring and navigating information and data, but that's very rare. So one of the biggest challenges we have, and we talk about the economics of attention, is finding new ways of helping us to focus on the right information and have fun doing it. And that's very important. Otherwise, this whole approach to engagement with the digital world is not sustainable. We can get that same level of excitement and passion in our private lives, but how do we actually design that into our business lives? So the last quotation is from Friedrich Hayek. He says that the human mind cannot bring more than a small percentage of what it knows into consciousness. We should try to balance it with game and play. So talking about the joining the conversation and make it matter, as I said, we have all the digital assets, if you like, the technology to make this possible. We ourselves need to focus much more on the business of innovation, thinking about what is it that motivates us and our target audience, be it employees and customers, and make sure we're actually using that, using technology to stimulate that innovation approach. With that, I'd like to thank you very much, and of course, I'd like to thank you for your attention for this presentation. Thank you.